Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. In this video, we are going to discuss the autonomic nervous system, and we are going to give a review of its physiology, as we can't cover all the aspects of physiology, but we are going to focus on all those concepts that are going to link with this chapter. So now let's discuss about autonomic nervous system. What is autonomic nervous system? Well, autonomic nervous system is actually a control system that regulates the body function. But remember that it works involuntarily. It is not under the voluntary control of us. For example, heart rate, digestion, respiratory rate, all of those are example of the body function executed by autonomic nervous system. So autonomic nervous system is further divided into two important parts. One is the parasympathetic system and other is the sympathetic system. So students, if you are talking about a system, तो इसका मतलब है कि अंडर दिस सिस्टम हम जो है नर्व्स की बातें करेंगे, न्यूरोनल ट्रांसमिशन की भी बात करेंगे और रिसेप्टर्स की बात करेंगे. तो ये जो सिस्टम है इसमें ये सारी चीज़ें हम कवर करेंगे. So when we are discussing the outline of autonomic nervous system, you can see in this figure that the higher centers of this system are the brain and spinal cord. So this higher center is responsible for controlling all the visceral and autonomic functions of the body. When we are talking about higher center, actually we are collectively talking about it as a collective system. But actually we are having center in the medulla, then the hypothalamus, then the reticular formation, and then the cortex. Actually, these four centers, we are calling them the higher centers. So collectively, when I'm talking about higher center, I mean these four centers. So you can see that in this figure, the brain and spinal cord is shown, and from these higher center, the nerve fibers, they move through the parasympathetic system and the sympathetic system as shown in the figure. So now we want to talk about the anatomy of the autonomic nervous system. You can see in this figure that the autonomic nervous system, actually it carries the nerve impulses from the CNS, brainstem or spinal cord, you can see here, towards the effector organs. The effector organs, they could be heart, it could be intestine, it could be the glands, by the help of two efferent neurons. These efferent neurons are the preganglionic neuron and the postganglionic neuron. You have to remember that the preganglionic neuron, it is that neuron which emerges from the brainstem or spinal cord. So in this figure you can see that the preganglionic neuron, after emerging from the brainstem or spinal cord, it makes a synaptic connection in ganglia. What is ganglia? It is a collection of nerve cell bodies located in the peripheral nervous system. And now you can see the postganglionic neuron. The cell body of the postganglionic neuron originates in the ganglion, while that of the preganglionic neuron, it originates from the brainstem, as you can see in this figure. So ultimately, the preganglionic neuron, it releases a transmitter, and the postganglionic neuron also releases a neuroeffector transmitter that attaches with the receptor on the effector organ and produces a function. So now यही जो efferent neurons हैं autonomic nervous system के that we discussed, they are divided further into sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system as well as the enteric nervous system. So anatomically अगर हम देखें तो जो sympathetic और parasympathetic neurons हैं, they originate in the central nervous system and they emerge from two different spinal cord regions, as you can see in this figure. You can see in this figure the preganglionic neurons of the sympathetic system, they emerge from the thoracic and lumbar region, T1 to L2 of the spinal cord, and you can see that the preganglionic neurons of the sympathetic system are actually synapsing in two cord-like chains of ganglia. You can see in this figure, which is very close and parallel to the each side of the spinal cord. You can see that the preganglionic neurons of the sympathetic system, they are actually shorter in comparison to the postganglionic neurons. So इन दोनों फिगर्स को आपने एक्चुअली एक साथ पैरेलली समझना है. एक तो बिल्कुल उसकी आउटलाइन है एंड ऑन द अदर साइड ये पूरी जो है इसकी डिटेल है जो स्टार्ट हो रही है फ्रॉम द ब्रेन स्टेम और स्पाइनल कॉर्ड जहाँ से वो ओरिजिनेट हो रहा है एंड टिल द इफेक्टर ऑर्गन जो कि आईज, सलाइवरी ग्लैंड्स, हार्ट, लंग्स, स्टमक कुछ भी हो सकता है इनमें से. तो ये एक्चुअली इसकी डिटेल्ड एक्सप्लेनेशन है in terms of figure. If you compare the sympathetic system with the parasympathetic system in terms of the preganglionic neurons, you can see that the preganglionic neurons of the sympathetic system, they are actually highly branched. Like one preganglionic neuron, it can interact with many postganglionic neuron at a time. So you can see that in this figure. So now when we talk about the parasympathetic system, the preganglionic fibers, they arise from the cranial nerves 3, 7, 9 and 10, and as well as from the sacral region S2 to S4 of the spinal cord. The difference between the parasympathetic and the sympathetic system in the terms of synapse is that the parasympathetic system, its preganglionic fibers, they synapse in ganglia which are near or on the effector organ rather than near the spinal cord, as that was in the case of the sympathetic system. One of the most important nerve that is responsible for actually 90% of the function in the thoracic and abdominal cavity, and that is the vagus nerve, the 10th nerve. So ultimately, in contrast to the sympathetic system, the preganglionic fibers in this system, in parasympathetic system, they are long, while the postganglionic ones, they are short. So now we are going to talk about the third division of the autonomic nervous system, which is known as the enteric nervous system. We also have the third division of the autonomic nervous system, which is the enteric nervous system that innervates the GIT, pancreas and gallbladder. It is also known as the brain of the gut, and the different thing about this system is that actually it functions independently of the CNS, and its main role is to control the GIT motility and the secretions of both exocrine and endocrine glands, and it is actually controlled by both the sympathetic and parasympathetic system. So now you have understand about the autonomic nervous system, and that the nerve fibers, they actually don't directly start from the heart center and reach towards the effector organs. There is always a station in between, and that is actually the main distinction of the system.